So I'm here, perhaps. I see there's 2 viewers, it looks like. I see a little eye up on the screen with the number 2. So we're just a few minutes early. So before I formally start, but welcome those who are early birds. I'll just wait until it's actually 8 o'clock before starting formally. So I hope everybody is well, and just got 1 more minute before it's actually starting time. So Sud has just put in the chat. So welcome, Sud, and whoever else is here. We're just about to start. I didn't want to start too early, but I think it's time now. Yeah, so I'll start to pay homage to the Buddha. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Buddham dhammam sangham namasami. And we have Usha here also. And someone's, looks like a thumbs up. I don't know, a little icon. So welcome everyone. Today I'm going to be reading and making some comments on a sutta in the Majjhima Nikāya, the middle length discourses. It's Bhante Sujato and also Bhante Bodhi, Venerable Bhikkhu Bodhi, both have translated the title, the Bhaya Bhairawa Sutta. Bhaya Bhairawa, it's a little bit difficult for me to pronounce, I'm sorry. Bhaya is fear, Bhairawa must be dread. So they both translated it as fear and dread. So that's just to note. And I will be mostly reading from Bhante Sujato's translation, which is on Sutta Central. So this is the 4th in the collection, the middle-length collection of the teachings of the Buddha that were passed down by oral tradition. Most of you here probably know that, but I get reminded I should explain things because not everybody does know. So this is happened in Savatthi. So I'll start reading. At one time, the Buddha was staying near Savatthi in Jeta's Grove, Anathapindika's monastery. So this was a monastery that was donated by Anathapindika. Then the Brahmin Janusoni went up to the Buddha and exchanged greetings with him. And this Brahmin Janusoni, he was an advisor to King Pasenadi, and he was, so he's pretty high-ranking Brahmin. The Brahmin caste was the highest caste, and he was a high-ranking Brahmin. And he appears in a number of suttas. He's like riding around in his white chariot. He's got a white chariot with two white mares, and it's like very ostentatious. And everybody's like in awe of this spectacle of him. But here he is just walking up to the Lord Buddha, approaching him and exchanging greetings with him. And when the greetings and polite conversation were over, he sat down to one side and said to the Buddha, Master Gotama, those gentlemen who have gone forth from lay life to homelessness out of faith in Master Gotama, have faith, Master Gotama, to lead the way, help them out, and give them encouragement. Bhante Bodhi's translation, he asks a question, whether those who have gone forth have faith in him and seek him as their guide, seek the Lord Buddha as his guide, or as their guide. And also Bhante Sujato says sometimes, this statement is sometimes translated as a question, but it lacks the usual question marks. So Bhante Sujato disagrees that it's an actual question, but a statement. And those people follow Master Gotama's example. So this is all a statement by the Brahmin Janusoni, or a question, depending how you want to translate it. I'm not a translator, so I don't have a strong opinion on which one is correct. But either way, he's making a statement that could be perceived as a question, but the way the Lord Buddha responds, it may seem like a question. He says, and then the Lord Buddha says, that is true, Brahman. Everything you say is true, Brahman. And Bhante Sujato doesn't, the Lord Buddha in the other translation, he repeats everything that the Brahman Janusoni has said. And then here, there's an actual question. But Master Gotama, remote lodgings in the wilderness and forests are challenging. It's hard to maintain seclusion and hard to find joy in solitude. The forests seem to rob the mind of a mendicant who isn't immersed in samadhi. So when you look at Bhante Bodhi's translation, it seems like that Brahman is actually having this inquiry with him regarding this. And this shows a certain amount of respect that he's coming kind of almost like counsel or something like that, but also just maybe out of curiosity. But this thing about the forest seemed to rob the mind of a mendicant who isn't immersed in samadhi. It's an interesting statement or question. So if you're in the forest alone, you might have a lot going on mentally. You're just left with your own, alone with your own mind. And so your mind can start playing tricks on you, or you can become fearful. So he's saying that they already have an understanding about samadhi in the Brahmins, or it says it's something that's not a rare phenomena, it seems like. So there are people that practiced in samadhi during the time of the Buddha, and not necessarily Buddhists. And so the Lord Buddha says, that's so true, Brahman. Everything you say is true, Brahman. Before my awakening, when I was still unawakened, but intent on awakening, I too thought. Remote lodgings in the wilderness and forests are challenging. It's hard to maintain seclusion and hard to find joy in solitude. So a lot of people have this ideal about going into seclusion, but once you start doing it, you start seeing the psychological difficulty of it. So this was known at the time of the Buddha. And so both of them are aware of this. So even before the Lord Buddha's awakening, it was a practice to go into seclusion. The forest seemed to rob the mind of a mendicant who isn't immersed in samadhi. So if they don't have their, it seems like before you go into the wilderness, you have to have a certain amount of calm and settledness of mind, stillness of mind, to go when you're an inexperienced meditator in seclusion. It doesn't seem like a recommended thing here. So then the Lord Buddha was reflecting before he went into the forest. He had these thoughts preparing himself to go to the forest. He said, then I thought, there are ascetics and Brahmins who are unpurified in conduct of body, speech, and mind, who frequent remote lodgings in the wilderness and the forest. Those ascetics and Brahmins summon unskillful fear and dread because of these defects in their conduct. So this is your basic ethical conduct, your sila. And if you aren't keeping your sila or your conduct pure, then you have a lot more going on in your mind. Your mind is not settled. And you might have fear of the consequences of your behavior. You might have fear of, like if you believe in karma, and it may feel that you might have some karmic consequences due to the misbehavior. So he reflects on this, that it's interesting. He's translated Brahmins summon unskillful fear and dread because of these defects in their conduct. So summons, it brings it up. It's an interesting way of phrasing it. I'm trying to look at another translation, see what Bhante Bodhi has, how he's translated it. He says, I consider thus, whenever recluses or Brahmins unpurified in verbal conduct, unpurified in mental conduct, unpurified verbal, bodily, and mental conduct, unpurified in livelihood, resort to remote jungle, thicket, resting places in the forest, they evoke unwholesome fear and dread. It's like evoking or summoning. That's interesting. It's like they're bringing it upon themselves. There's greetings for another people. Manal. A script I don't know. I'm sorry, I can't read it. Karuna. Monastic cat cuddler. Oh, well, I'm standing in because Teddy is right next to me. And Happy Namtal. Greetings from Thailand. Oh, wow. So it's nice people with this Zoom, people can meet one another. So we'll continue. So summoning, bringing it upon yourself, this fear and dread, it sounds like to me, from evoking the fear and dread because of their conduct. But I don't frequent remote, this is the Lord Buddha continuing, excuse me. But I don't frequent remote lodgings in the wilderness and the forest with unpurified conduct of body, speech, and mind. My conduct is purified. I am one of those noble ones who frequent remote lodgings in the wilderness and the forest with purified conduct of body, speech, and mind. Seeing this purity of conduct in myself, I felt even more unruffled about staying in the forest. So he's reflecting on his own conduct here, and he didn't see any unwholesome conduct, unethical conduct. So he felt confidence, it's unruffled. This is kind of an interesting. I didn't look at the Pali this time to find out what the Pali word for unruffled is, but you know, like if the cat gets excited, the fur gets all ruffled, doesn't it? I guess it's something like that. So he says, I resort to remote jungle thicket resting places in the forest as one of the noble ones in livelihood purified. Seeing in myself this purity of livelihood, I found great solace in dwelling in the forest, having solace or being unruffled. Yeah, it's probably one of those Pali words that you had to come up with your own understanding of what was being said, because sometimes there's a number of choices in the when you're looking in the dictionary. So he didn't feel any fear thinking about it ahead of time, because he didn't have any remorse because of his his behavior through body, speech, or mind, or his livelihood. I guess Bhante Bodhi included livelihood in that collection of, you know, the way he collected the phrases together, and then Bhante Sujata is saying, then I thought there are ascetics, or he's translated it a little bit differently, where how it's clustered. Then I thought there are these ascetics and Brahmins with unpurified livelihood who frequent remote lodgings in the wilderness and forest. Those ascetics and Brahmins summon unskillful fear and dread because of these defects in their livelihood. Their livelihood could be engaging in some kind of like divination or something illegal or something that wasn't quite above board. And so they may have some kind of misgivings about that, especially if they're dealing with like kind of super normal kind of things. They may have fear of some kind of consequences because of that. So then the Lord Buddha reflects, my livelihood is purified. I am one of those noble ones who frequent remote lodgings in the wilderness and forests with purified livelihood. Seeing this purity of livelihood in myself, I felt even more unruffled, finding solace, I think, in the idea of going to the forest. Then I thought, there are ascetics and Brahmins full of desire for sensual pleasures with acute lust. That's quite strong. I am not full of desire, he says of himself. So some of the Brahmins, they would live a pretty luxurious lifestyle, and then they would have periods of asceticism. So they'd be kind of going back and forth between sensual indulgence and asceticism. So suddenly, it's kind of like an addict suddenly going cold turkey, maybe going into the forest, giving up all your sense pleasures and plucking yourself down in some kind of a hut in the wilderness or something, or the root of the tree. I can't imagine that. It was. So he is not full of desire, the Lord Buddha. There are ascetics and Brahmins full of ill will, with malicious intent. And then he says, I have a heart full of love. So Bhante Sujato translates metta, which is here, I'm sure, metta chitta. So he has a heart full of love or loving kindness. And so if you go to the forest and then you're full of ill will, the animals will kind of sense that. Animals are very sensitive to your emotions. So, or if you have anger and ill will and you're having all these angry thoughts, it's a very unsettled mental state. But if you have a loving kindness, I don't know if many of you sit outside and do metta bhavana, but you might find that the birds and the beings are start coming in closer. It's like partly your stillness and partly your heart is radiating out this beauty, and so you don't have to fear the animals. This is one of the qualities, one of the benefits of metta bhavana, cultivating loving kindness. So his heart was already full of metta, while he was still cultivating to full awakening. This is prior to his full awakening. So I have a heart full of love, he reflected. And he says, there are ascetics and Brahmins overcome with dullness and drowsiness, and I am free of dullness and drowsiness. So this is starting to sound familiar, right? They started out with sensual desire and then ill will, and now we have dullness and drowsiness, and he's free of dullness and drowsiness. So if you're sitting in the forest and dull and drowsy, you might start kind of hallucinating, and you're starting to you're sitting up and you're starting to fall asleep, and you start. So if you're alert and aware, you're not less fearful, I think, than when you're kind of like groggy. And your imagination and your even visual images could start playing tricks on you, I would imagine. Anyway, So there are ascetics and Brahmins who are restless with no peace of mind. Now, it would be difficult to be in this forest and being restless and not having peace of mind. But my mind is peaceful. There are ascetics and Brahmins who are doubting and uncertain. I have gone beyond doubt. So this again, this is we have 5 hindrances here. We have the sensual desire, ill will, dullness and drowsiness, restlessness, and doubting. So he's gone beyond doubt. I saw another translation here of that, which uncertain and doubting. I guess. Well, at least he had confidence in. I was thinking it maybe that he had confidence in himself. He's still like it's still before his full awakening, but I think he has enough confidence in what he's doing. He's not doubting. There are ascetics and Brahmins who glorify themselves and put others down. I don't glorify myself and put others down. You could have delusions of grandeur when you're in the forest too, I imagine. That'll be another way that your mind may become, you might go crazy. I think this is what the mind, they said, robbed, their minds would be robbed, like losing your mind. It would rob the mind. And then there's ascetics who are cowardly and craven. It's that old-fashioned word, craven. I don't get startled, it says, as a response to that. He's not fearful just by nature. There are ascetics and Brahmins who enjoy possessions, honor, and popularity. I have few wishes. There are ascetics and Brahmins who are lazy and lack energy. I am energetic. There are ascetics and Brahmins who are unmindful and lack situational awareness. This is also translated as clear comprehension. Sati sampajanya says here, see if I can find it. It's sampajana sandosa. See, sati. Oh, this is not. Okay, where's it? I am mindful. Let's see. It's in here. Sampasamano. Anyway, he has mindfulness and clear comprehension, or situational awareness, however you like to translate it. And there are ascetics and Brahmins who lack immersion with straying minds. So this is asamahita, lacking samadhi. And so he's accomplished in samadhi. That's his Bhikkhu Bodhi's translation for samadhi. Some people, Bhante Bodhi still has concentration, and a lot of people rebel against that word for a translation of samadhi. But I have lots of respect for Bhante Bodhi. a brilliant translator and wonderful monastic. But we might not like the translation of that word. There are ascetics and Brahmins who are witless and stupid, who frequent remote lodgings. I guess if you don't have much intelligence, then probably wouldn't be a good idea to go to the wilderness, would it? So he says, I'm accomplished in wisdom. So they're probably foolish, I guess. I would say witness and stupid. But Lord Buddha sees wisdom in himself. This is prior to him being a Buddha. He's examining, he's doing this inventory before he goes to the wilderness. Seeing this accomplishment of wisdom in myself, I felt even more unruffled about staying in the forest. Then I thought, there are certain nights that are recognized as especially portentous. The 14th, the 15th, the 8th of the fortnight. On such nights, why don't I stay in awe-inspiring and hair-raising shrines and parks, forests and trees? In such lodgings, hopefully I might see that fear and dread. So now he's testing himself, because they must have heard of many Brahmins, many ascetics that go out in the wilderness and they just go crazy because of fear, because of the unwholesome mental states and unwholesome bodily behavior, a lack of development, mental development. So now he's just saying, okay, I've looked at I've done this inventory on myself, and now I'm going to really test it. I'm going to go to the scariest places I can think of on a very auspicious night and see what happens. And so sometime later, that's what I did. So he did that very thing. He went to these auspicious places and or scary places, frightening places, awe-inspiring places. As I was staying there, a deer came by, or a peacock snapped a twig, or the wind rustled in the leaves. Then I thought, is this that fear and dread coming? So you can imagine it just being alone in the wilderness and you hear something and oh, that's a deer, or oh, it was just a peacock. So, yeah, but you start getting a little bit nervous being out there alone and you can't see it's at nighttime, especially if new moon night, you can imagine. But even the full moon is kind of spooky, right? Shadows and, you see kind of something in the moving in the leaves, or something moving in the shrubbery, and what's that? So so he hears these sounds. So he's wondering, apparently he's not too frightened, because he's asking, is that the fear and dread coming? He's asking. Then I thought, why do I always meditate expecting that fear and terror to come? Why don't I get rid of that fear and dread just as it comes, while remaining just as I am? Then that fear and dread came upon me as I was walking. I didn't stand still or sit down or lay down until it had got rid of that fear and dread while walking. So he didn't change his position. He just continued. And I'm assuming other people also assume that he was doing walking meditation. So he didn't change his posture. Then that fear and dread came upon me as I was standing. I didn't walk or sit down or lay down until I had got rid of that fear and dread while standing. Then that fear and dread came upon me as I was sitting. I didn't lie down or stand still or walk until I had got rid of that fear and dread while sitting. Then that fear and dread came upon me while I was lying down. I didn't sit up or stand still or walk until I had got rid of that fear and dread while lying down. So it changes suddenly here. It doesn't really explain much about how he got rid of the fear and dread, but he apparently, other people that I've looked into this a little bit, Bhante Nalio and others are saying he's doing walking meditation, standing meditation, sitting meditation, lying down meditation, and then fear comes up. And for some reason, he's intent on abandoning fear. Maybe it'd be the last defilement he saw in himself. So the fear was still there. And there's this innate fear of dying, I imagine, being harmed, experiencing pain, and especially death. This is something that most of us don't even want to, explore in ourselves, that there's that fear there. Most people of our own mortality. So I'm just imagining this is what it could be. And so the fear is coming up. And he's just remaining in the same position and not changing. So he's staying in his meditation posture until it subsides somehow. But just observing it, he was like looking for fear and dread. So then it's like, there it is. And now I see it, I'm seeing it clearly, perhaps. And so he could see the arising and passing of that experience of fear. So this is all my surmising. And Bhante Nalio talks about somatic experiencing, actually, and just experiencing it in the body. There's a therapy called somatic experiencing. And so you're just the clear awareness of what's going on in the body, the physical experience of the fear, but not, like if I'm sitting and suddenly, there's usually some associated with a memory or something, but if I start feeling intense fear that's just spontaneously arising, if I leap up and, like nervously start moving around, or a lot of times we avoid the experience of the feeling by changing position. So this is really interesting. So he just stayed with the position he was, the posture of his meditation. He didn't change his meditation posture until it just passed. He said he got rid of the fear, but it doesn't really go into details about that, because suddenly it changes. He starts talking about something else. So this is very interesting, this whole section, because we have to kind of, for ourselves, try to understand what's going on here, rather than it's being explained clearly in the sutta. But somehow he's gotten through it. He's overcome it. So now the tone shifts. It says, there are some ascetics and Brahmins who perceive that is day when in fact it's night, or perceive it's night when in fact it's day. This meditation of theirs is delusional, I say. So apparently it was some kind of meditation practice to shift your perception when it's daytime to perceive it as night. And that's supposed to be some kind of accomplishment, to see nighttime as day. And this is not as by day, as by night. That means that staying consistent with your practice throughout the day and night. But this is changing your perception. And he's saying this is delusional. And if there's anyone of whom it may be rightly said that a being is not liable to delusion, has arisen in the world for the welfare and happiness of people, out of compassion for the world, for the benefit, welfare, and happiness of gods and human, it's of me that this should be said. So he's saying he's not liable to delusion, and it's for others' benefit that he's purified his mind in this way to a point where he's not delusional. I mean, we all have a certain amount of delusion. Or the ordinary Pratujjanas will have some amount of delusion, but these Brahmins that were changing their perception were actually cultivating delusion. So he's recognizing himself that, okay, I missed. He said this meditation is delusional. I perceive that it's night when in fact it's night, and perceive that it's day when in fact it's day. And then he makes this statement proclaiming that he's out of compassion for others. He has come to a state of non-delusion. He's not deluded. He's not a being liable to delusion. So reflecting on this, he says, my energy was aroused up and unflagging. My mindfulness was established and lucid. My body was tranquil and undisturbed. My mind was immersed in samadhi. So he's overcome fear, and he's recognized this non-deluded, undelusional state. And then this brought up energy and mindfulness and lucidity. And the body became tranquil, undisturbed, and the mind became immersed in samadhi. There's a note here by Bhante Sujato. I think I'll just read it. To this point, the sutta has been focusing on the foundations of meditation from the special perspective of overcoming fear. Now that this has been achieved, it returns to the standard presentation of immersion and then wisdom. Taken together, then, it is the first presentation of the gradual training in the Majjhima Nikāya, so the middle length discourses. So that was Bhante Sujato's note. So then he's become immersed in samadhi. He's starting to go through the jhanas. Quite secluded from sensual pleasures, secluded from unskillful qualities, I entered and remained in the first absorption, which has the rapture and bliss born of seclusion, while placing the mind and keeping it connected. This is the Vitakka Vichara. This is how Bhante Sujato translates that. Placing the mind and keeping it connected. As the placing of the mind and keeping it connected were stilled, so he abandons the Vitakka Vichara, I entered and remained in the second absorption, which has the rapture and bliss born of immersion and internal clarity of mind at one, without placing the mind and keeping it connected. And with the fading away of rapture, I entered and remained in the third absorption, where I meditated with equanimity, mindful and aware, personally experiencing the bliss of which the noble ones declare. Equanimous and mindful, one meditates in bliss. So the piti has faded away, and then the sukha is, and the upekkha are, and the sati are more predominant factors. With the giving up of pleasure and pain and the ending of former happiness and sadness, I entered and remained in the fourth absorption without pleasure or pain, with pure equanimity and mindfulness. The pure upekkha sati. When my mind had become immersed in samadhi like this, purified, bright, flawless, rid of corruptions, pliable, workable, steady, and imperturbable, I extended it towards the recollection of past lives. I recollected many kinds of past lives. Oh, I think I'm not go into the detail about his description of all the past lives. Sorry, this is taking a little longer. So, but basically he was able to see, this goes many eons of 100,000 rebirths, many eons of world contracting and expanding. And then he was able to see how he lived. It was like remembering the food he ate and what his name was and what his clan was and so on. This is how I felt pleasure and pain. This is how my life ended. And when I passed away from that place where I was, I was reborn here. And so recollected many kinds of past lives with features and details. So I just skipped over some of it there. This was the first knowledge which I achieved in the first watch of the night. And ignorance was destroyed, knowledge arose, darkness was destroyed, light arose, as happens for a meditator who is diligent, keen, and resolute. And when my mind became immersed in samadhi like this, purified, bright, flawless, rid of corruptions, pliable, workable, steady, and imperturbable, I extended it towards the knowledge of the death and rebirth of sentient beings. So I started to observe other beings and how they arose and disappeared. And with clairvoyance that is purified and superhuman, I saw sentient beings passing away and being reborn according to the Kama. I'm just going to skip over this too because I realize I want to end the sutta and have a little bit of time for questions. So I saw sentient beings passing away and being reborn, inferior and superior, beautiful and ugly, in a good place or a bad place. I understood how sentient beings are reborn according to their deeds. And this is how Bhante Sujato translates Kama, according to their deeds, their actions. Kama basically is action, but your intention is really what's big driving force where you're going to end up. That was the second knowledge, which I achieved in the middle watch of the night. And then he's going to go, the ignorance was destroyed and knowledge arose, darkness was destroyed, and light arose, as happens for a meditator who is diligent, keen, and resolute. When my mind had become immersed in samadhi like this, purified, bright, flawless, rid of corruptions, pliable, workable, steady, imperturbable, I extended it towards the knowledge of ending of defilements. This is the asavas. I truly understood this is suffering. This is the origin of suffering. This is the cessation of suffering. This is the practice that leads to the cessation of suffering. So that may sound familiar to most of you. That's the Four Noble Truths. He understood very clearly. I truly understood these are the defilements. This is the asavas. Some people call them taints. I think that's how Bhante Bodhi translates it in the Majjhima Nikāya. This is the origin of the defilements. This is the cessation of the defilements. This is the practice that leads to the cessation of the defilements. So, he's destroyed the asavas. What does that mean? He has become an arahant. Knowing and seeing like this, my mind was freed from the defilements of sensuality, desire to be reborn, and ignorance. This is the three asavas. Kamasawa, bhavasawa, and vijjasawa. And they understood birth is ended, the spiritual journey has been completed, what had to be done has been done, there is no return to any state of existence. So he's a fully awakened, self-awakened Buddha here. This was the third knowledge which I achieved in the final watch of the night. Ignorance was destroyed and knowledge arose. Darkness was destroyed and light arose, as happens for a meditator who is diligent, keen, and resolute. So, this is what we need to do. We need to be diligent, keen, and resolute. So then the Lord Buddha ends with, Brahman, you might think, perhaps the Master Gautama is not free of greed, hate, and delusion even today, and that is why he still frequents remote lodgings in the wilderness and the forest. But you should not see it like this. I see two reasons to frequent remote lodgings in the wilderness and the forest. I see a happy life for myself in the present, and I have compassion for future generations. And then the Brahman Janasoni says, indeed, Master Gautama has compassion for future generations, since he is a perfected one, a fully awakened Buddha. So he's just realized, I think maybe Janasoni realizes this now, but who is he sitting in the presence of? Excellent, Master Gautama, excellent, Master Gautama, as if he were righting the overturned or revealing the hidden or pointing out the path to the lost or lighting a lamp in the dark so people with clear eyes can see what's there. Master Gautama has made the teaching clear in many ways. From this day forth, may Master Gautama remember me as a lay follower who has gone for refuge for life. So this is quite a beautiful ending. It's a classic, actually, that people hear the teaching and they're so inspired they go forth. as a lay follower or into monastic life. So we have a few minutes here. And someone is from Nepal. That's very beautiful. There's a few more people that have, I don't know what this is. Oh, okay. So does anyone have a question or about what's I can do my best in answering any questions. Hello from Chile. Hola. Miguel Hidalgo. Okay, so Miguel, welcome. I'm looking for questions. So I see some lots of Anjalis, which is very nice. And let me go back up to see if anyone was asking any questions. No, I don't see any so far. So I like to look at this sutta again and again. This is one of those suttas that is worth really pondering. And this whole issue about overcoming fear and how he did that is actually quite interesting. And then this kind of self-inventory that he did, that looking why were all those other people going crazy in the forest? And so we could actually, like you hear in the meditation centers that sometimes people going on long retreats do kind of get a little crazy. And if you've gone into a retreat center, a lot of times they'll have you fill out a psychological profile and ask you if you're on any kind of psychiatric medications or something like that, because it's a known fact that people their minds can become disturbed if you're not used to looking at the mind, if you're not used to examining your own mind or admitting to what's arising. We get so distracted by things. We have so many things these days, more and more. I mean, we have, our cell phones and, food and all the things that we distract ourselves with. So once we're away from all those distractions and we start seeing what's arising in our own mind, sometimes that itself can be really disturbing. And if we have any, like breach in our ethical conduct, or if we have some kind of unwholesome mental states that are just overcoming us a lot. When I was by myself in the forest, I was an anagarika, and I was on a hermitage land that was just donated. So there was nothing on the land except for some old rundown trailers that I didn't want to stay in because they were mouse infected. So I was in a tent. And so I was like, yay, I'm by myself for 2 weeks and no one's going to bother me. And so my own mind was bothering me. I started noticing a lot of anger coming up. And I didn't go crazy, but I was like, whoa, this is unwholesome. So I started doing metta bhavana to, fortunately I had something to fall back on. I had the metta bhavana, and I had a recording. I was listening to Bhante Gunaratana's he had a metta retreat. So I said, okay, I'm going to listen to this because I was seeing so much anger coming up. And I was like, oh my goodness. So this is what you kind of sometimes, or if you don't want to admit to yourself that you have this kind of defilements, you don't want to work with it and you just want to kind of stuff it or something. I could imagine that would drive you crazy. Or, you become fearful. I was very comfortable being in the forest. I didn't have fear, and we have pretty tame forests in California. I was in California. There are mountain lions and rattlesnakes, uh, and I have encountered them, but they're pretty tame. Like other parts of the world, the snakes are so deadly that you don't last long if you're bit. And the cougars are pretty shy. Usually they don't attack. But anyway, so I had a different kind of a defilement. I could go crazy with anger, I imagine. Or I might disturb all the beings in the forest, and they might want to get rid of me. So anyway, so I really love this sutta, and I hope I don't see any questions. And it's about 9:00 now. So if there aren't any questions, we can close. So thank you all for attending and your kind attention, and wishing you freedom from fear and freedom from, to be able to overcome any unwholesome states that may be bothering you. And so we can pay refuge to the Buddha, Dhamma, Sangha. Okay, move without disturbing the cat. he's been sharing my seat. Have a wonderful day.